Sophie Cunningham, blink twice if everything's not okay. Blink twice if it's not safe, Sophie. We got you, girl. We got you, girl. Sophie Cunningham, sent out by Amber Cox and the Indiana Fever to do some damage control because she was a bit too honest. We gotta get into
Welcome to Hoopzonic, and we are starting today with a welfare check on Sophie Cunningham because somebody needs to make sure she is okay. Blink twice, Sophie. We see you, we hear you, and we know exactly what happened between that original post going viral and the retraction that followed it within 24 hours. Cause here's what everybody needs to understand before anything else gets discussed today. Sophie Cunningham did not wake up the morning after posting went rogue, worth it, we improvised, oops, and suddenly decide on her own that she had communicated something inaccurate. That is not how human beings process information. That is not how professional athletes manage their social media presence. You do not post something publicly, watch it spread across every corner of basketball internet, see your own teammate respond in the comments with love, watch the rest of the roster pile in behind her, and then independently conclude that you misrepresented the situation and owe the public a correction. That is not a personal realization. That is a phone call. Amber Cox made that call. The Indiana Fever organizational machinery identified a viral post that was generating exactly the kind of public narrative they have been working all season to suppress, and they dispatched their damage control operation within 24 hours to neutralize it, take it down, walk it back, tell the internet they read too much into it, tell them it was exactly the play the coach drew up. Sophie had no choice. We understand that. We do not hold it against her, but here at Hoopzonic, we are not letting the retraction erase the original. The original post is still in the record. The roster comment section is still in the record. Amber Cox cannot delete what we already saved.
It appears that the Indiana Fever police placed a phone call to Sophie Cunningham because, she took it down. She had to take it down. That was one. And then two, they forced her to backtrack. Who didn't see that one coming with the way the Indiana Fever have been moving? Of course, they forced Sophie Cunningham to say, hey, I was just...
And let us talk about the exact sequence of events that unfolded between Sophie Cunningham's original post and the retraction that replaced it, because the timeline alone tells you everything you need to know about how this organization operates. When something escapes the narrative container they have built around this season, post goes up, goes rogue, worth it. We improvised. Oops. The basketball internet explodes. Clark responds in the comments. The roster piles in. Every major WNBA media account picks it up and runs with it. The story is out and it is spreading faster than any organizational communications team can track in real time. Then the phone rings. We do not know the exact words of that conversation. We do not need to. The outcome of the conversation is publicly documented in Sophie Cunningham's own words, delivered within 24 hours of the original post generating the reaction it generated. You guys read too much into things. That was exactly the play our coach drew up, and we executed it perfectly. Read those two statements side by side and identify the version of Sophie Cunningham that sounds like a professional athlete speaking from her own authentic experience of what happened on that floor. The first version admitted she went rogue. The first version said it was worth it. The first version signed off with an oops that carried the specific energy of someone who knew exactly what she was acknowledging and had decided the acknowledgement was worth whatever came next. The second version sounds like language that was given to her rather than generated by her. Exactly the play our coach drew up, executed it perfectly. These are not the words of a player organically clarifying a misunderstanding. These are the words of a player who received specific talking points and delivered them with the best performance she could manage under the circumstances. Here at Hoopzonic, we are not dismissing the retraction. We are placing it exactly where it belongs in the documentary record of how the Indiana Fever organization responds when the truth about what is happening inside that building becomes publicly visible. They moved within 24 hours. They got the post taken down. They got the retraction published. What they could not do was reach back in time and remove the original from the screenshots and the saves and the reposts that had already spread it across every corner of the basketball internet. Just it, the smoking gun does not disappear because someone tried to unload it.
But they've never gone out to get in the front line and protect Caitlin Clark. They sat there. They are currently sitting there and watching an entire smear campaign go on Caitlin Clark. And there is someone saying that they are getting the information directly from the organization. Amber Cox has been silent about it. Stephanie White has been silent about it. Lynn Dunn has been silent about it.
This is the clip that requires the most honest accounting of what this organization's behavior pattern actually reveals when you examine it, without the charitable framing that keeps getting extended to people who have done nothing to earn it. The Indiana Fever front office is not a passive institution that has been slow to respond to a complicated and fast-moving situation. It is an active and responsive organizational apparatus that has demonstrated across this entire season that it monitors public conversation, identifies threats to its preferred narrative, and deploys communications resources against those threats. With speed and coordination, we established that in the previous clip. 24 hours from viral post to retraction. That is not a slow-moving bureaucracy. That is an organization that knows exactly what it is doing and moves quickly when the motivation to move exists, which makes the silence around the Caitlin Clark smear campaign the most damning evidence this organization has produced against itself all season. Amber Cox, silent. Stephanie White, silent. Lynn Dunn, silent. Three of the most visible and publicly active figures in this organization's communications apparatus have watched a coordinated public campaign attack the character, the behavior, the personality, and the professional reputation of the player whose commercial value funds the organizational infrastructure they operate within, and have issued exactly 0 public responses in her defense. Not a statement. Not a social media post, not a quiet denial through unnamed sources, nothing. And someone is publicly claiming they are receiving the information driving that campaign directly from inside the organization. That claim is sitting in the public record. It has been sitting there, and the organization that mobilized within 24 hours to neutralize Sophie Cunningham's rogue post has not found the time or the motivation to address it. Here at Hoopzonic, we are not treating that silence as an oversight. We are treating it as a choice. A deliberate, considered, organizationally sanctioned choice to protect the people generating the smear campaign while leaving the target of it without institutional defense. You respond to what threatens you. You stay silent about what serves. The Indiana Fever's selective silence is not a communication failure. It is a communication strategy, and the strategy tells you exactly where this organization's loyalties actually live when the performance of those loyalties costs something. Real Cox, White, Dunn, still silent. The record is still running.
That the Indiana Fever front office haven't always been quiet. Remember, I told you guys they hear us. They hear us loud and clear. When we got on them for the Raven Johnson pick, when we said we needed more size, what did Lynn Dunn do? She went on the internet and called all us fans complainers. You know why? Because they hear us. Why do you think the Indiana Fever and Amber Cox have people like Jason Whitlock and other people who have been calling the front office out blocked on social media?
For anyone who has been told that this organization operates above the noise of fan criticism and social media commentary and independent media accountability, this clip is the evidence that makes that claim permanently unsustainable. They hear us. That is not a hopeful declaration. That is a documented fact with specific receipts attached to it. When Hoopzonic and the broader fan community got on the Indiana Fever about the Raven Johnson pick and the need for more size and the roster, construction decisions that have been undermining this team's competitive ceiling all season, Lynn Dunn did not stay silent. She went on the internet and called the fans complaining about it complainers. That is not the behavior of an executive who is not paying attention to what the public conversation around her organization is saying. That is the behavior of an executive who is paying very close attention and has chosen a combative response to the criticism she is hearing. Jason Whitlock calls out the front office. Gets blocked. Other critics call out the front office. Gets blocked. The organizational social media apparatus does not block people. It is not reading. You block the accounts that are getting through. You block the voices that are finding the target. The blocking is itself confirmation of the monitoring. Stephanie White stands at a pre-game podium and responds directly to fan criticism about the entertainment value of Indiana's offensive system. It is not my job to be entertaining. That sentence does not get constructed and delivered at a press conference by a head coach who has not been hearing and processing the specific criticism it is responding to. That is a direct reply to a conversation she has been following closely enough to formulate a specific counterposition. Here at Hoopzonic, we have been saying for months that this organization hears every word of this accountability conversation. This clip is not an argument. It is a collection of their own responses confirming it. They hear the criticism about Raven Johnson. They hear the calls for roster changes. They hear Whitlock. They hear the entertainment complaints. They hear all of it, and they respond to all of it, except the smear campaign against Caitlin Clark. That specific conversation produces the one silence in an organization that has demonstrated it is capable of responding to everything else. And that specific silence is the loudest thing the Indiana Fever have communicated all season about where their institutional loyalties actually live. We are not letting up at Hoopzonic. They hear us. Good. At Hoopzonic, we do not cover stories. We cover records. And the record this video has documented is not a collection of dramatic moments or viral clips or social media controversies that will dissolve back into the normal operational rhythm of a professional basketball season. It is a sequential, time-stamped, publicly available body of evidence that describes an organizational pattern with enough consistency and enough specificity that the pattern itself is now the finding. Sophie Cunningham went rogue, and the organization mobilized within 24 hours to neutralize the damage. The retraction is in the record, so is the original post. So is the roster comment section that confirmed what the original post communicated before the retraction arrived to walk it back. Amber Cox celebrated Caitlin Clark's Time 100 recognition. In the same week, her organization sat silent through a coordinated public smear campaign against that same player. Both of those things are in the record simultaneously. The contradiction between them is not something that requires analytical expertise to identify. It is visible to anyone reading both statements in the same sitting. Lynn Dunn called fans complainers. Whitlock got blocked. White responded to entertainment criticism from the podium. The organization that claims not to be monitoring the public accountability conversation around it has produced documented evidence across this entire season that it monitors that conversation closely and responds to it selectively, meaning everything that threatens the coaching staff and the front office gets a response. Everything that threatens Caitlin Clark gets silence. That selective pattern is the organizational character of the Indiana Fever in this specific moment. Of this specific season. It is not a series of coincidences or oversights or communication gaps that a more coordinated front office would have handled differently. It is a strategy, implemented consistently, producing predictable results. Here at Hoopzonic, we're going to keep documenting it. Every clip, every timestamp, every retraction, every silence, every block, every podium response that accidentally confirms they heard the criticism they are pretending not to hear. The record does not close because the organization wants it to. It closes when the accountability it demands finally arrives. Subscribe to Hoopzonic. We are not done.